The Lingua Franca, Why English Rules the World. Prologue, The Question of Power. I sit in a quiet cafe in Madrid, watching the world move around me. The soft hum of Spanish fills the air, animated conversations, laughter, the rhythmic melody of a language spoken by over 500 million people. It is a language of poetry and passion, the lifeblood of entire continents.
Yet, when the waiter approaches, he greets me in English.
This moment, subtle yet profound, captures a truth few question. Spanish, with its vast number of native speakers, should logically be the world's most influential language. But it isn't. That title belongs to English, the language of business, diplomacy, science, and entertainment. If you want to negotiate a trade deal in Beijing, conduct research in Berlin, or attend an aviation conference in Dubai, you do it in English. Why? The more I thought about this, the more fascinated I became. This wasn't just about numbers. It was about power. What made English the global language? Was it the British Empire, spreading its words on the sails of warships, the rise of the United States imprinting its culture and economy worldwide? Or was it something intrinsic to English itself that made it uniquely suited for dominance? These questions led me on a journey across history, politics, economics, and culture, tracing English's rise from a minor Germanic tongue to the world's lingua franca. Along the way, I uncovered the lost opportunities of the Spanish Empire, the political maneuvers of the British and Americans, and the advantages that allowed English to reign supreme. This is that journey, the search for the answer to a question that hides in plain sight. Why is English the most powerful language on earth? Chapter 1. The Origins of English Influence. The dominance of English does not begin with Shakespeare or Hollywood. It starts centuries earlier, in the wind-swept islands of medieval Britain, where a fractured land spoke a mosaic of languages: Celtic, Latin, Norse, and early English. English, as we know it, emerged from a collision of cultures. In the 5th century, Germanic tribes, the Angles, Saxons, and Jutes, crossed the North Sea and settled in England, bringing their languages, which merged into Old English. Then came the Vikings, adding Norse words. In 1066, William the Conqueror invaded from Normandy, and suddenly, England's elite spoke French while its commoners spoke English. This fusion made English highly flexible and adaptive. By the late Middle Ages, English had begun to reassert itself, evolving into Middle English. The Black Death and the decline of Latin in scholarship forced people to rely on their native tongues. When William Caxton introduced the printing press in the 15th century, he chose to print in English, further solidifying its importance. As literacy spread, English became the language of the people, breaking free from the constraints of the elite. Then, history intervened in the form of empire. While Spain and Portugal were carving up the New World, England, late to the game, turned its sights on North America, the Caribbean, and later, India and Africa. The British Empire, though not the largest in landmass, became the most influential. At the heart of its power was language. English became the language of administration, trade, and governance. Unlike Spanish, which remained dominant in its former colonies due to cultural continuity, English spread even where British rule ended. India, Nigeria, and South Africa became hubs of English-speaking elites who carried the language forward. But empire alone did not make English supreme. Other empires, Spanish, Portuguese, French, had also spread their languages. Something else gave English an edge: its adaptability. English had begun its ascent, but it would take more than empire to cement its dominance. The Industrial Revolution, America's rise, and the Information Age were still to come. Chapter 2. The Spanish Empire's Lost Opportunity. At its height, the Spanish Empire ruled vast territories across the Americas, the Caribbean, the Philippines, and parts of Europe. Spanish was spoken from Mexico City to Manila, and its empire stretched further than any before. By sheer landmass and population, Spanish should have been the world's dominant language. Yet it never achieved the same level of global influence as English. Why? One key reason was Spain's approach to governance. Unlike the British, who established colonies with long-term settlement and trade in mind, the Spanish model revolved around resource extraction. Gold and silver were shipped back to Spain, enriching the empire but failing to establish self-sustaining economies. In contrast, English-speaking colonies fostered trade-based economies that encouraged long-term development.
Spain's rigid control over its territories also stifled the organic spread of its language. The Catholic Church played a dominant role in colonial rule, and Spain centralized power in Madrid, limiting local autonomy. This meant fewer opportunities for Spanish to become a truly global, adaptable language, as local cultures and governance structures were often suppressed rather than integrated.
Another major factor was the decline of the Spanish Empire in the 18th and 19th centuries. As Spain lost territories, particularly in Latin America, newly independent nations sought to establish their own identities, leading to linguistic fragmentation. Meanwhile, the British Empire was still expanding, further embedding English in global affairs.
By the time the Industrial Revolution took center stage, English had already become the language of commerce and innovation. Spanish, while dominant in its regions, lacked the economic and scientific influence that could have propelled it onto the world stage.
Spain's golden opportunity to make its language the dominant global tongue had come and gone. Meanwhile, English continued to grow in strength, driven by economic shifts and cultural influence.
As the first industrialized nation, Britain's influence extended worldwide. English spread not just through conquest but through commerce. British engineering firms, textile mills, and steel manufacturers set the standard for global production. Industrial terminology, patents, and scientific discoveries were recorded in English, making it the default language for technological advancement.
The British Empire further ensured English's spread by embedding it in legal systems, education, and governance across its territories. Railroads, banking systems, and industrial infrastructure built by the British often retained English as their operating language long after independence.
Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, the United States was rising. Before Spanish-speaking populations grew, the U.S. was overwhelmingly English-speaking due to its colonial roots. As the country industrialized rapidly, it became an economic powerhouse. American business, culture, and technological innovations from the automobile to the telephone cemented English as the language of progress.
By the late 19th and early 20th centuries, English was no longer just the language of Britain. It had become the language of modernity, industry, and global trade.
The film industry, led by Hollywood, played a pivotal role in making English the dominant cultural language. American movies reached audiences across the world, shaping perceptions of modernity, success, and even morality. Unlike many foreign-language film industries, Hollywood benefited from large-scale production capabilities, global distribution networks, and an appeal that transcended national boundaries.
Since many non-English-speaking countries used subtitles rather than dubbing, audiences became familiar with English phrases, accents, and idioms. Over time, this led to increased comprehension and acceptance of English, making it more accessible, even to those who had never formally studied it.
English also became the primary language of modern music. From early jazz and blues to the explosion of rock and pop in the 1950s and beyond, English-language songs dominated international charts. The Beatles, Elvis Presley, Michael Jackson, and Madonna became household names across continents, spreading English to every corner of the globe.
The rise of MTV and the internet solidified this trend. Today, even artists from non-English-speaking countries often sing in English to reach a global audience. English lyrics have become so deeply embedded in global culture that non-native speakers effortlessly incorporate English phrases into everyday speech.
As global trade expanded, multinational corporations relied on English as the language of branding and advertising. Companies like Coca-Cola, McDonald's, and Nike ensured that their slogans, commercials, and product packaging featured English, even in non-English-speaking markets.
With the rise of television and digital advertising, English became inescapable. Catchy slogans introduced English words and phrases into the lexicon of people who might never have formally studied the language. In a way, English was not just learned, it was absorbed through exposure.
Television further reinforced English dominance. From BBC World News to CNN, English-language media became the primary source of global information. Satellite television made English-language programming accessible worldwide, giving international audiences direct access to news, entertainment, and education.
With the advent of the internet, this trend accelerated. Social media platforms like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok made English the language of global conversation. Online trends, memes, and slang originated in English and spread rapidly across cultures. Phrases like LOL, selfie, and hashtag became universally understood, further entrenching English in digital communication.
English's dominance in global culture was not planned. It was an organic process fueled by music, film, advertising, and digital media. As the 20th and 21st centuries progressed, English ceased to be merely a language of business and science. It became the language of daily life for millions. Whether through movies, music, or social media, people engage with English constantly, reinforcing its place as the world's cultural lingua franca. From the earliest days of the internet, English was the default language for websites, programming, and online communication. Most coding languages, including Java, Python, and C++, are based on English syntax, ensuring that technological advancements continue to be driven primarily in English.
Early search engines, web pages, and online communities were overwhelming English-centric. Businesses and individuals adopted English to reach the widest possible audience, reinforcing its dominance. Even non-English speaking countries adapted to this trend, with English becoming the primary second language for internet users worldwide.
Social media platforms like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok amplified English's global reach. English became the language of trending topics, viral content, and global conversations. Influencers and content creators often prioritized English in their posts to attract a broader audience, further entrenching its dominance in digital spaces.
Whether for professional networking on LinkedIn or casual discussions on Reddit, English is the common ground where international users converge. Fluency in English is now essential for online participation, making it a necessity rather than an advantage.
Beyond the internet, English has solidified itself as the official language of diplomacy. Organizations such as the United Nations, NATO, the European Union, and the World Trade Organization conduct their business primarily in English. Even in multilingual organizations, English remains the default language for critical discussions and policymaking.
While some international bodies operate in multiple languages, English is the de facto standard for negotiations, legal documents, and global agreements. Diplomats and policymakers worldwide are expected to communicate fluently in English to ensure effective collaboration.
One of the strongest pillars securing English's global influence is its dominance in legal and educational institutions. Many international contracts, treaties, and legal frameworks are drafted in English. This makes English essential for global commerce, ensuring that businesses across different countries can operate under a common linguistic framework.
Education is another crucial factor. The world's top universities, including Harvard, Oxford, Cambridge, and MIT, conduct their programs in English. Scientific research and academic publications overwhelmingly favor English, making it the default language for knowledge production and dissemination. Students from around the world seek education in English-speaking institutions, further embedding the language into global intellectual and professional landscapes.
While Mandarin Chinese and Spanish boast large numbers of native speakers, they face significant barriers to surpassing English in global influence. Mandarin's complex writing system and tonal nature make it difficult for non-native speakers to learn, limiting its widespread adoption. Additionally, China's strict internet regulations hinder Mandarin's organic spread beyond its borders.
Spanish, while widely spoken, remains regionally concentrated. Unlike English, which is entrenched in business, science, and technology, Spanish has not established itself as the global language of innovation and commerce.
English's dominance in the digital age is not just a product of historical momentum, it is continually reinforced by technology, diplomacy, law, and education. As the language of the internet, global governance, and academia, English remains indispensable for international communication. Despite occasional debates about the rise of Mandarin or Spanish, English's deep-rooted presence in global institutions ensures that it will remain the world's lingua franca for the foreseeable future. From the Industrial Revolution to modern technological breakthroughs, English has been the predominant language of scientific research. The UK and the US led early advancements in physics, medicine, and engineering, positioning English as the language of academic discourse.
During the 20th century, this trend accelerated. Institutions such as NASA, the National Institutes of Health, NIH, and the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, cemented English as the language of cutting-edge research. Today, over 90% of scientific papers are published in English, further reinforcing its role as the universal language of knowledge and discovery.
For non-English speaking researchers, publishing in English is often necessary to gain international recognition. While this can create challenges, the benefits of using a shared language for scientific communication outweigh the drawbacks.
English is deeply entrenched in the global financial system. Wall Street and the London Stock Exchange have historically set global economic trends. As a result, financial professionals across continents conduct transactions, draft contracts, and communicate in English.
Multinational corporations, many headquartered in English-speaking nations, set the standard for international commerce. Even companies based in non-English-speaking countries adopt English as their primary business language to compete in the global market.
Interestingly, native English speakers are often less motivated to learn other languages because English is already the global business language. In contrast, professionals from non-English speaking nations prioritize learning English to advance their careers and expand business opportunities.
One of the biggest questions of the 21st century is whether artificial intelligence, AI, will reduce the need for English. Advances in AI-powered translation tools, such as Google Translate and DeepL, have made it easier than ever for people to communicate across language barriers. 2. A common linguistic framework is still needed. Even if real-time translation becomes seamless, English will remain the foundational language for programming, legal contracts, and international regulations.
3. The digital and legal infrastructure is built on English. Most AI models are trained predominantly on English language data, ensuring that English remains at the core of technological advancements.
English's role in science, business, and finance is deeply rooted in historical precedents and modern necessity. While AI and translation technology may ease language barriers, they are unlikely to dethrone English as the global lingua franca. The efficiency of a common language, combined with the entrenched position of English in international institutions, ensures that it will continue to be the dominant language of global interaction for the foreseeable future. Historically, successful diplomacy has relied on a shared linguistic framework. Before English, Latin and French were the preferred languages of international relations. However, as the British Empire expanded and the United States emerged as a global superpower, English gradually replaced French as the dominant diplomatic language. Even in non-English speaking regions, policymakers and diplomats are expected to be fluent in English to engage in meaningful discussions. International law, trade agreements, and global policy frameworks are overwhelmingly drafted in English, reinforcing its necessity.
English is not just a practical tool for diplomacy. It is deeply embedded in global culture. People in non-English speaking countries consume English language music, films, and literature, often viewing the English-speaking world as aspirational. This widespread admiration has led to the integration of English words, customs, and trends into daily life across diverse cultures.
Hollywood, British television, and American pop culture continue to set global trends, influencing everything from fashion to slang. As a result, people from different linguistic backgrounds frequently use English phrases, even in their native conversations.
In many countries, English proficiency is associated with upward mobility and access to better opportunities. Universities, multinational corporations, and prestigious institutions prioritize English fluency, making it a desirable skill for those seeking international careers. Moreover, English is deeply entrenched in key industries such as aviation, finance, science, and law. International flight communications, for example, are conducted exclusively in English to ensure safety and efficiency across global air traffic networks.
Advances in artificial intelligence and real-time translation have raised questions about whether English will remain indispensable. While AI-driven translation tools have improved cross-language communication, they are not yet precise enough to replace the need for a common language.
Legal contracts, medical research, and diplomatic negotiations require accuracy and nuance that AI translations still struggle to replicate. Additionally, most AI models are trained predominantly on English language data, further reinforcing English's global role.
English's role in diplomacy, culture, and technology has solidified its position as the world's dominant language. From international treaties to Hollywood blockbusters, English connects people across different nations. While challenges exist, no other language currently possesses the widespread acceptance and practical utility needed to dethrone English as the global lingua franca. As technology evolves, English is likely to remain the bridge that facilitates international communication and cultural exchange. Scientific progress and global collaboration rely on a shared language. Historically, Latin was the academic lingua franca, but as the Industrial Revolution took hold in the UK and the US, English became the language of innovation. Today, over 90% of scientific publications are written in English, and the world's top academic journals, including Nature and The Lancet, require English submissions. For non-English speaking researchers, publishing in English is often necessary to gain international recognition.
While this dominance has facilitated global knowledge exchange, it also presents challenges. Non-native English speakers face linguistic barriers that can impact their ability to contribute to scientific discourse. Efforts to make academic findings more accessible in multiple languages are increasing, but English remains the primary language of research and education.
Safety is paramount in aviation, and miscommunication can have deadly consequences. The standardization of English as the global language of air travel was not a coincidence, it was a necessity.
The UK and US were pioneers in aviation technology, naturally leading to the use of English in early flight communications. In 1951, the International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO, mandated that all international air traffic communications be conducted in English. Today, pilots, air traffic controllers, and flight crews must meet ICAO's English proficiency standards to ensure clear and accurate communication.
This system has prevented misunderstandings and improved global air safety. Beyond aviation, English also plays a crucial role in international tourism. Hotels, transportation hubs, and travel agencies use English as a common language to assist global travelers. Whether booking a hotel in Paris or ordering food in Tokyo, English is often the default means of communication.
With advancements in artificial intelligence, translation technology is evolving rapidly. AI-powered tools such as Google Translate and DeepL now provide real-time translation for text, voice, and even live conversations. This raises the question, will the necessity of learning English decline as auto-translation becomes more sophisticated?
Some argue that as AI translation improves, global communication will no longer require a shared language, leading to a gradual decline in English usage. In the future, individuals might be able to speak their native languages and rely on real-time AI to translate seamlessly in professional and social settings. English continues to play a critical role in academia, aviation, and global travel, ensuring standardization, safety, and accessibility. While AI translation may reduce some barriers, it is unlikely to replace English as the world's lingua franca in the foreseeable future. The efficiency of having a single global language, combined with English's deep-rooted influence in major industries, suggests that it will remain dominant for generations to come.
Even in countries where English is not the primary language, legal professionals must be proficient in English to engage in global legal matters. This has led many law schools worldwide to offer English language courses, ensuring future lawyers can navigate international regulations effectively. Online news platforms from the New York Times to The Guardian drive global conversations, influencing public opinion and international policy. Social media platforms further amplify English's dominance. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok favor English as the primary language of digital discourse, shaping how people consume and share news worldwide.
With the rise of artificial intelligence and real-time translation, some believe that English's dominance in law and media may eventually diminish. AI-powered tools are already making it easier for people to access news and legal documents in their native languages, reducing the necessity of English proficiency. While AI and translation tools may make non-English media more accessible, they are unlikely to erase the historical momentum that has made English the dominant language of legal and journalistic discourse. Instead, English will likely continue to serve as the bridge language that connects people across different linguistic backgrounds.
English's role in law, media, and global communication remains strong due to its historical foundation and continued necessity. Whether in courtrooms, newsrooms, or treaty negotiations, English serves as the universal language that facilitates international cooperation and information dissemination. While AI and translation technology may reduce some barriers, English's entrenched position in these fields suggests that it will remain the dominant language for the foreseeable future.
Money talks, and in most cases, it speaks English. The world's financial centers, Wall Street in New York, the London Stock Exchange, and major markets in Singapore, Hong Kong, and Sydney conduct business primarily in English. The dominance of English in business stems from the economic power of English-speaking nations. As global commerce expanded, businesses from non-English-speaking countries adopted English as their working language to remain competitive.
This linguistic uniformity provides efficiency in negotiations, reduces misunderstandings, and allows for seamless interactions between global partners. Business professionals who are proficient in English gain a competitive edge, as fluency in the language is often a prerequisite for senior leadership roles in multinational firms.
English-speaking universities have played a significant role in cementing the language's global importance. Institutions such as Oxford, Cambridge, Harvard, and MIT set academic standards that influence universities worldwide.
Degrees from English-speaking institutions carry global prestige, particularly in business, law, and science.
Most academic journals publish exclusively in English, requiring researchers to write in English to gain international recognition.
Universities worldwide offer English language programs to attract international students and align with global academic standards.
Studying in English is often seen as a pathway to success, especially in fields like technology and finance. Even in non-English-speaking countries, English-taught courses are becoming increasingly common, further embedding the language's influence in higher education.
With China's rise as a global economic superpower, some speculate that Mandarin could challenge English's dominance. However, despite China's economic strength, English remains the default language of international commerce and diplomacy.
Chinese businesses continue to engage with global markets in English, recognizing that the language is too embedded in international finance and governance to be replaced.
Mandarin presents significant linguistic barriers to non-native speakers due to its complex writing system and tonal pronunciation.
China's controlled internet environment restricts the organic spread of Mandarin, unlike English, which thrives in open digital spaces.
Furthermore, many nations maintain political and cultural resistance to adopting Mandarin as a global language. English, by contrast, has evolved as a flexible and adaptable language, making it easier for non-native speakers to learn and use in professional settings.
English continues to dominate global business and higher education, ensuring that professionals and students alike seek fluency in the language to remain competitive. While economic power may shift among nations, the practical necessity of English in commerce, academia, and governance means it is unlikely to be displaced. Even as AI and digital translation evolve, English's role as the world's primary lingua franca is secure for the foreseeable future. Scientific progress relies on a shared medium of communication, and today that medium is English.
Over 80% of high-impact scientific literature is written in English.
Global research collaborations, such as CERN's Large Hadron Collider and the International Space Station, operate primarily in English.
Most technical documentation, patents, and medical research are published in English, making it the dominant language of discovery. For non-English-speaking scientists, publishing in English is often a requirement for career advancement. However, this also creates barriers for those who are not fluent, limiting accessibility to non-English researchers. The development of computing was led by English-speaking nations, particularly the US and the UK, resulting in English-based coding languages. This has ensured that aspiring programmers must engage with English to thrive in the tech industry.
Even as multilingual programming tools emerge, English remains the default for software development and AI training datasets.
As AI-powered translation and voice recognition software improve, some believe that English's dominance may begin to decline. Real-time translation tools are already making it easier for people to interact in their native languages without needing English as an intermediary. At the same time, technology is also expanding linguistic diversity. AI-assisted translation, multilingual search engines, and apps that preserve endangered languages are opening doors for non-English speakers to access and create content in their native languages.
English remains the backbone of global science, technology, and digital communication. Its influence in scientific publishing, programming, and AI development ensures that it will continue to play a central role in innovation. However, as technology enables greater linguistic inclusion, we may see a future where English is no longer the sole gatekeeper of knowledge and digital progress. Whether English remains unchallenged or new technological tools usher in a more multilingual world will be determined in the decades to come.
Hollywood's influence has shaped film industries around the world. Even in countries with strong local cinema, English remains a key part of the entertainment ecosystem. However, the rise of streaming services is challenging Hollywood's complete dominance. While Hollywood still produces the majority of globally recognized films, the success of international productions suggests a more diverse future in film consumption.
The rise of multilingual music suggests that while English remains dominant, non-English songs are gaining mainstream recognition like never before. English has long played a central role in shaping global entertainment, from Hollywood films to chart-topping music. While its dominance remains strong, changing audience behaviors and the rise of multilingual content suggest a shift toward greater linguistic diversity. Rather than being replaced, English is now sharing the entertainment landscape with other languages. The coming years will determine whether this trend continues or if English reasserts itself as the primary language of global media.
Because of this, English has become synonymous with modern consumer culture. Even companies based in non-English speaking countries frequently use English branding to appeal to a global audience.
This strategic choice reinforces English's presence in global commerce and consumer culture. Because of this, English is often the default language for digital advertising, ensuring brands connect with a global audience through social media, search engines, and online marketplaces.
Despite English's dominance, many brands are recognizing the importance of localization. Companies are now embracing multilingual advertising as consumer preferences shift toward more personalized and culturally relevant marketing. Companies like Netflix and McDonald's have successfully implemented hybrid branding strategies, balancing English with local languages to maintain their global appeal while ensuring cultural relevance.
Although localization efforts are increasing, English is unlikely to be replaced entirely in global advertising. However, we may see a hybrid model emerge, where English remains a core branding language while companies incorporate multilingual strategies for specific markets. English has long been the dominant language in advertising and branding, shaping how companies connect with consumers across cultures. While localized marketing strategies are growing, English's association with global prestige, digital accessibility, and commercial success ensures that it will remain central to international branding. The future of advertising is increasingly multilingual, but English's influence will continue to shape the industry for years to come.
Native English-speaking countries often have an advantage in diplomatic engagements, as they can articulate their positions directly in their first language, while non-native speakers must invest in high-level English proficiency to participate effectively. Because of this, law schools worldwide emphasize English language training, ensuring that future lawyers and legal professionals can operate within the dominant legal frameworks. While English currently dominates diplomacy and law, its long-term position may evolve. Instead of being replaced, English is more likely to coexist with a broader range of languages in a more multilingual diplomatic environment. English's role in diplomacy, law, and governance has been solidified through historical, institutional, and economic factors. While challenges to its dominance exist, the practical advantages of a common diplomatic language mean that English will likely remain a central pillar of global communication. However, as technology and geopolitical shifts continue to evolve, international governance may increasingly embrace a more multilingual approach. Balancing English's utility with greater linguistic diversity. Even in regions where English is not widely spoken, hospitality staff often receive training in basic English to accommodate foreign visitors. This reinforces English's role as the essential language of global mobility. The adoption of English in these sectors is not just about convenience, it is a matter of security and operational efficiency. Misunderstandings in air traffic control or maritime navigation can have severe consequences, making a single standardized language necessary for global safety protocols. Despite these challenges, English is unlikely to be replaced entirely. Its role as a universal travel language is too deeply entrenched in international infrastructure. However, we may see a more hybrid model emerge, where English remains a primary language, but is increasingly complemented by more localized language options. English continues to dominate global tourism and transportation, providing a common means of communication for travelers, businesses, and infrastructure. While localization and AI translation tools may reduce reliance on English in some areas, its role as the primary global travel language is unlikely to disappear. Instead, the future will likely be a balance between maintaining English as a universal standard while embracing greater linguistic diversity to enhance accessibility and cultural authenticity in travel experiences. As a result, even countries with strong linguistic traditions invest heavily in English language education, recognizing its role in preparing students for an increasingly interconnected world. This widespread adoption of English in universities has created a global academic ecosystem where English proficiency is a prerequisite for higher learning and professional success. Despite these challenges, English is unlikely to be replaced as the dominant language of global education in the near future. However, the landscape may evolve in the following ways. English continues to play a central role in global education, providing access to knowledge, research, and career opportunities. While multilingual education trends are growing, English's established presence in academia, publishing, and international collaboration ensures that it will remain the dominant language of higher learning. The future of education may be more linguistically diverse, but English's role as the bridge language in academia is likely to persist for generations to come. Summary of key points. Why English rules the world.
Historical and colonial influence.
English spread globally due to the British Empire, which established English as the administrative and trade language in North America, Africa, India, and Australia.
The rise of the United States as an economic and cultural superpower in the 20th century reinforced English's dominance.
English in global business and economics.
English is the language of international trade, banking, and finance, used in Wall Street, the London Stock Exchange, and multinational corporations. Business contracts, global stock trading, and corporate negotiations are predominantly conducted in English.
English as the language of science and technology.
Over 80% of scientific publications are in English, making it the standard for academic research and innovation. Programming languages, AI models, and the entire digital infrastructure are built on English-based syntax, reinforcing its role in technology.
English in education and higher learning.
English-speaking universities like Harvard, Oxford, and MIT set the global academic standards, attracting international students and producing world-leading research. Many non-English-speaking universities offer degree programs taught in English to compete in the global education market.
English as the language of global communication.
Diplomacy and international law use English as the primary language in organizations like the UN, NATO, and the WTO. English remains the default language of news media, global journalism, and digital platforms, ensuring it is at the center of political and social discourse.
The cultural power of English.
Hollywood, the music industry, and social media have solidified English as the primary language of entertainment and pop culture. Streaming services and global media companies prioritize English, exposing non-native speakers to the language from a young age.
English in global travel and aviation.
Air traffic control, maritime communication, and international travel operate in English, ensuring smooth global transportation. English is the default language in tourism, making it an essential tool for travelers and hospitality industries worldwide.
Challenges to English's dominance.
The rise of Mandarin Chinese, Spanish, and regional languages in business and technology presents competition, but none have yet overtaken English. AI translation tools are improving, but misinterpretation and lack of nuance mean English is still the preferred common language in global affairs.
Final statement: why English will continue to dominate.
Despite challenges from emerging languages and AI translation, English will continue to be the dominant global language due to its entrenched position in business, science, technology, education, media, and diplomacy. It is the language of global connectivity, ensuring that people from different cultures and backgrounds can communicate efficiently. More than just a means of communication, English has become a necessity for success in commerce, academia, entertainment, and international relations. Its adaptability, global presence, and association with opportunity ensure that no other language is positioned to replace it in the foreseeable future. In an increasingly interconnected world, English is not just a language, it is the world's bridge to progress.